AI is here to stay and we better learn how to use it. I'll be honest with you, when I first saw some of the stuff that ChatGPT could do, I was a little bit intimidated. I was like, oh my word, what is this thing going to do? What have we unleashed? But over the last few months, I've spent some time trying to figure out how to used it for my own betterment and improving my work and the company's work. And so today what I want to do is I want to share some things with you about how you can master the machine prompts. I'll give you some tips that I've used that's helped me, how you can converse with the machine, like a conversation, break things down, and things like that. I'll also share some tips and hacks that I've used to speed up my work. The ChatGPT is a great critic, just so you know. And then I also will make a breakout list of all the different things that you could do for marketing in ChatGPT, and then also point out to you things that you cannot do and the things that you should avoid doing or not rely on it having do. So that's also discussed in this podcast. I'll also talk about Google's position on AI generated content, which is very important to know because they are still the number one search engine in the world. Also, how about whether the article you're reading or the content that you just paid for, is that AI generated? Well, there are tools out there that can help you find that out. Also, I'll share the URL of a really cool website that has all the AI tools in one spot. That's a great website for you to know about. And then, anyway, I'll share some takeaways on this whole topic. And there's a lot to learn, a lot to discuss, and a lot to work through when it comes to AI. So let's get started. Welcome to the latest episode of Corner Your Market. I'm your host, Sailes Kimide. In this podcast, I talk about all things digital marketing, from website design and development to SEO and PPC, as well as paid advertising, email marketing, social media, and anything in between. If you're a small business owner, a marketing manager in a company, or an entrepreneur, this podcast is for you. So tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. You'll gain some practical insights, new strategies, tactics, and tools that will help you grow your business. To subscribe, go to corneryourmarketpodcast.com and select the podcast app of your choice. Then you can hit subscribe within those apps. That again is corneryourmarketpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to like and share our individual episodes. You can also leave a review in the app once you've listened to one of our episodes. So ChatGPT is the big elephant in the room, I think, for marketing, for digital marketing, for anything really. So I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to share my thoughts. I'm going to give a little bit of commentary, and I'm also going to share some hacks in terms of how I've been using ChatGPT and how digital marketing can be enhanced, how your marketing can be enhanced using ChatGPT tools and other AI systems. I haven't played around with a lot of AI systems beyond ChatGPT, but what I've seen from ChatGPT so far has been enough to keep me occupied. I have played around with some of the logo making AI tools, voice tools, and some video tools even, but not all of them are free, and it gets expensive once you start subscribing to all of them. So I don't have the time or the budget right now to get into all of those. But I'm going to keep this conversation focused on ChatGPT and the marketing hacks associated with them and how you can basically take advantage of it and become a better marketer. I've heard this said in other places as well, but I don't think ChatGPT or AI is going to replace you. I think ChatGPT and AI is going to replace those that don't know how to use it. I think that was a pretty cool statement, right? So what it comes down to be honest with you, is that you need to master the machine. You need to be able to master this machine and this machine learning that's happening right now. And you need to be able to use it in creative ways to your advantage. And not in a dishonest way, not in a way to trick people, or not in a way to game systems, which I think some people are trying to do right now. And that's what Google is so scared of, is that people are going to use ChatGPT to generate content that is just noise, but so well optimized that it tricks Google's algorithms. So I think that's a legitimate concern. I'm sure there's smart people out there that are trying to counter that. But anyway, so what I'm going to talk about that's social commentary. Today, what I want to do is share some of the ways in which I have used ChatGPT and the ways in which I've learned to use it and how helpful it's been for me. So, the first point that I want to make today is mastering the machine prompts, right? There's a couple of things I've learned about this. It's all about mastering your machine prompts, meaning what are you inputting into ChatGPT? So I think there's simple things that people have already done, like you can go in and say, rewrite this, right? That's great. Give me 5 things about this, that's great, right? Those are very simple. That's like basic. It's like if you were programming in BASIC back in the late 80s, like some of us were. But there's a much more complicated ways in which you can use it, more sophisticated ways that you can use it. And so I've learned a few things the last few months when it comes to mastering the machine prompts. There's a lot of ways in which you basically need to craft your input by if you wanted to get really good information, you need to define your role, right? You need to say who you are, at least tell the machine what you're trying to, who you are. Like let's say in this case, I am a digital marketing person, right? And then you need to clarify your considerations and your focus. And I'll give you an example of this. I've tried to create an example of this. You need to clarify your considerations and your focus. And then you need to use as much precise language as possible. Be precise and avoid open-ended prompts, And I think this comes really easily for programmers. I mean, that's basically what we're taught when we're writing code back in the day. At least I remember from my computer science class. Our professor, Dr. Gage, actually, the C++ back in 1996, he used to say, write the algorithm out in English language first. You need to define everything really clearly, think outside the box, because once you write the algorithm in the English language, it's a lot easier to kind of convert that into code. But if you just sit there and try to make it into code, you're going to get lost. And I've taken that principle and applied it to ChatGPT as well. So let's get started. So here's an example. So I took one. So using those principles, what I did is I said, okay, this is the prompt that I entered. From a dog owner's perspective, so I'm identifying myself, what are the 3 chewable snacks, so I'm being very clear and concise, would improve the dog's dental health, right? Not just health, it's not open-ended. Dog's dental health. Provide detailed explanations with examples, and include your source. That's very specific, right? You've identified who's writing this, like who this article should be or this prompt should be written for. You've asked for something very specific. You're asking for 3 chewable snack recommendations. You are also being very concise. What do you want this information to be about? About improving the dog's dental health, right? And you don't want to just leave it at that. I mean, who knows? Is this AI thing just going to pull things out of thin air and just tell you whatever it wants? I want examples. And I also want you to include your sources because I want to know where you got this information from. So when I input that in there, I got some really good information. I got the ChatGPT prompt came back to me and said there are several chewable snacks that can improve a dog's dental health. And here are the 3 commonly recommended options. Said rawhide chews, gave a description on that. Dental chews, gave a description on that. Antlers, gave a description on that. And then it gave me sources. It said it pulled it from PetMD. It pulled it from American Kennel Club. It was really concise. It was like, wow, this is really, honestly, it's pretty useful information. So that's one way. That's the way in which you can use digital marketing, ChatGPT for digital marketing. Is if you're trying to create a useful, maybe let's say blog posts or content for your audience, and you need to get started on this. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't just take that and post it on my blog. I would take that and as a professional, maybe a dental health expert, I would expand on that. Maybe I would add some of my cases to that. But it gave me a really good starting point, right? So it took out that that initial hesitation of writing your content. Or maybe you have an opinion. Maybe you don't agree with all that, and maybe you have an opinion on that, and you could write a whole thing on why that particular chewable is not good at all, and the 5 cases that you've encountered where that's actually had problems. So you can counter that. So anyway, so that's one way in which I've been able to use it. in the very specific way that I mentioned earlier. Another way that's been useful for me is I have input my own blog posts in there, and also gotten an analysis on my tone and my style. Well, let me explain this example. Sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. So another one is, let's say you are wanting to write a newsletter to your audience, right? So this is what I said here. I said, what tone and style would be appropriate when writing an email newsletter about sports medicine? The target audience are hiking enthusiasts in the Phoenix area who may have experienced pain directly. So that's what I'm asking ChatGPT to do. And so then it came back and said, okay, when writing an email newsletter about sports medicine to hiking enthusiasts in the Phoenix area, I like how it's repeating things back at me. The tone and style should be informative, sympathetic, and approachable. So I copied that. I copied the tone: informative, empathetic, and approachable, right? And then it goes into the details of the tone, what the newsletter should aim. It should aim to educate, target audience. It went into all those details. And then it talks about the style, conversational tone, as if the writer is speaking directly to the target audience. So it gave me some really, really good, guidelines, which I read it, I agreed with it, I copied the parts that I agreed with, parts that maybe I thought, oh, I hadn't thought of that, and let me use that. So then I went back to ChatGPT and I said, okay, write a 5-paragraph newsletter with an informative, empathetic, and approachable tone. The newsletter should be about pain management when hiking in the Phoenix area. The target audience are middle-aged women who love to hike. There you go. It came back to me with a copy that I could use for my newsletter. So just talked about, it's very conversational tone. It's very informative. It has really good information, things like that. And I read through that and I thought, oh, this is a great starting point for me. This is awesome. So as a busy business owner, busy marketer, I'm using ChatGPT here to make my life a little easier. It's making my life a lot easier, right? So you're giving it very specific, very, very, like, what did I say? I said, I defined my role. I gave it very specific, considerations and focus. I used precise language. I avoided broad, open-ended prompts, and I told it what to do. Came back with some really good information. So that's one technique. The second technique, that one is called mastering the machine. That's just my terminology, mastering the machine. The second technique that I've used is conversing with the machine as if it was a live person. So in that regards, what I've been able to do is I've been able to ask it to simplify concepts. I've asked it to output things in a certain format. I've asked it to create analogies, write stories to clarify. I've asked it to analyze, to find style, tone, and voice. I think I did that in my earlier example already, so it might be a little duplicate here. But anyway, that's what I've done. So let me give you a couple of examples. Right. So what I did is I went in and I said, hey, what percentage of people use mobile devices to access the web versus desktop? I used to get this question a lot back in the day. Especially when mobile was starting to explode, and we're pushing mobile design. A lot of customers would ask us and say, hey, what percentage of the people are actually using the web on a mobile device versus desktop, right? So it came back to me with a response in paragraph form. It gave me some sources and things like that. Actually, I didn't ask for sources here. I should have asked for sources, but I just assumed the sources were good. I could always go back and ask it to give me the source. It'll give it to me. So after I did that, I don't want to sit there and read a paragraph, right? So, and plus the information is very high level. So I said, break this down by age group, age, gender, and U.S. regions, right? So U.S. regions being Northeast, South, West, and Midwest. I didn't specify that, but that's what it came back to me with. So it came back to me with that information. And then I thought, okay, this is interesting, but I still have to do work here. I have to read it. This information isn't that consumable. Please put these numbers into a table. Boom. It put it into a table. So it broke it down by age, mobile usage, and desktop usage. It put it in by gender. It put it in by U.S. regions. And boom, it has all that information, right? So then I took it even a step further and I said, okay, man, I'm getting a little lazy here. This thing is doing a lot of work and I don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to say, okay, all right, Mr. ChatGPT or Miss ChatGPT or whatever your gender is, explain the difference in these numbers by using a story to highlight important differences. So what I wanted to do was be able to present this information to my audience and say, okay, this is the difference in mobile and desktop use internet access in the US by regions, by gender, and by age. And this is what it means for you as a business, right? So it came back with a story. It said, imagine that we have two friends, John and Sarah, who both live in the US and are both interested in keeping up with news and current events online. And then it just wrote a story for me about John. It wrote me a story about Sarah. It highlighted the difference in their experience using the internet in terms of, access, what they're accessing, how they're accessing it, and all that kind of stuff. And it actually became pretty interesting to read, to be honest with you. So it gave me ideas, right? So now I could take this and I could put this in my, client response report and things like that. So anyway, you can talk to the machine. You can ask it to do things. It can put things in different formats. It can break things down for you. You don't have to take the response that it gives you as final. You can say, hey, explore this, break this down, put it in this format, write a story about it, stuff that you as a marketer are naturally doing, just do it, make ChatGPT do it, right? So the third one is speeding up your work, right? Obviously, this one is a little bit of a, basic thing that I think most people are already trying to do, but I'll give you some examples as well. So you can use it to create a content calendar. So again, giving the newsletter example, you could in that case say, hey, I am reaching out to, hikers in the Phoenix area, female, 60% female, 40% male, between the ages of 25 and 65. And I want to write a newsletter helping them with XYZ over the next 6 months. What are some, 6 topics that you would recommend over the next 6 months that I discuss? So you can create a content calendar that way. You could even break it down even more and break down tweets, ask it to generate a content calendar of tweets, Facebook ads, Facebook updates, whatever it is that you want to do. And then it really makes your life easy, right? So you're speeding up your work. You're not using that verbatim. You're not using that directly, but you now have a starting point where it speeds up your work. So now you can start mulling those things, and maybe you change things around a little bit. Maybe you rephrase it, but at least the ideas have already come out, right? So now you're just adding on top of it. So it should make your work that much better. So and then in terms of summarizing this one has been very good for me because I have been able to just copy paste URLs of very complicated articles that discusses different things, because I like to read that kind of stuff, and say, hey, summarize this for me, or explain this to me as if I was an 8-year-old, or explain this to me as if I was a college student, or explain this to me as a beginner. And it does go out, writes you back, and gets you a lot of gives you feedback based on that. It saves you time. It saves you a lot of time. So anyway, another thing that I've also done is ask it for criticism of my own work. So what I've done is I've posted a blog post that I have written, and I've said, what is missing from this article to make it stand out? Right? It gave me a couple of responses, blah, blah, blah. I'm just a language model. I don't really know, blah, what's going to make you stand out, but here's suggestions. So in this case, it said, add more visuals. You don't have enough in visuals. You should include more images. So maybe an infographic. Have you thought about a video? Have you looked for a video? I'm sure I could find a video. I'll help it find a video if that's one of their suggestions. And then the other thing that I didn't like about my article was it said, provide some specific examples. You're not giving enough specific examples. You're alluding to things, but it said the article could benefit from more concrete examples of manufacturing websites. It was a blog post I wrote on manufacturing websites. And then the third thing it said was offer detailed explanations. I was just not, like on the color and the typography point that I made, it said, give some more detailed explanations of maybe how you could use that. And then it said include case studies. Again, that's a lot of suggestions. I'm not going to use all of it, but it does allow me to get some live feedback right away. Because a lot of times when I write a blog post, I send it to an editor, I send it to somebody on my team. They have it look over and they give me feedback, right? And they may not see all the things that maybe ChatGPT can see. So it's a great way to maybe evaluate your own work and things like that. And then the other thing that I've also been very I talk to a lot of industries, people in different industries, and one of the things that I always try to do is I always try to prepare myself for that conversation. So if I'm, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to somebody that was in the metal fabrication business in the Midwest. Now, I don't have much experience with metal fabrication, right? Uh, they want to do digital marketing with us, and so in our first call, I wanted to sound educated. I wanted to, previously I would spend a couple hours reading up on the industry, find the trade magazines, see what they're talking about, what's the latest issues, what are things that might be relevant to this prospect, what can I do to show them that I'm interested in their industry, I know a little bit about their industry, and that I would be a safe and reliable partner for digital marketing. So instead of me doing all that work, I said, I am meeting a company that specializes in metal fabrication. What questions should I ask so I sound knowledgeable about their industry? Boom. Came back with 10 questions, right? There were some really good ones there, It said, can you walk me through your fabrication process from design to finished product? That was interesting. The other one that made you sound like you really knew was, what is your lead time for a typical project? How do you give me an example of some projects you've worked with in the past? These are all very good questions to ask, and it can make you sound interested and also educated about their industry, right? So those are just some of the things that, some of the ways in which I've used ChatGPT. So now let's talk a little bit. I know I've gone and on here about that, but let's talk a little bit on the philosophical, maybe strategic side. What does all of this mean for marketing, right? So some of the obvious ones are, it helps you break out of a creative rut. It can be really helpful in that. I can't tell you how many times I've been in ruts in the past and I don't know what to do. I'll put it aside. I'll put a reminder. I'll say, okay, I'm going to think about it when I'm working out, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to figure out a way to get out of my creative rut. ChatGPT can accelerate that process. It can also help you develop stronger messaging. Maybe, you've written a paragraph, go back to it, ask it to improve it, analyze it, think of something else, things like that. It can give you content marketing ideas, right? What are some additional topics that maybe I haven't thought about? What are ways in which I can, build a content calendar, things like that. And then SEO is also another one, optimizing existing content. I've tried to let it optimize content. It won't do that necessarily, but what it can do is it can write your meta description, because there's very strong parameters Google likes on meta descriptions. You could put those parameters in there and say, for this blog article or this page, give me a good meta description, give me a good title tag, give me good, 5 or 6 alt tags, give me what are some good H1 tags. The things that you need to input, you can isolate it and ask it to do that. It can really accelerate your work. And then ad copywriting, I think, is also very, very effective as well. So kind of along the same lines. So, we're making it sound like this thing is going to do a lot, right? It's going to do a lot. But what are some things that it cannot do, right? There's a lot of things that it cannot do. It'll give you an output, but I'm not going to say that that's great output. Maybe the next version of ChatGPT will learn, but I know people say you can do it, but when I've tried to use these features, it hasn't been great. So I'll give you my examples. What it cannot do effectively. So it can't develop a marketing strategy. So that's something that you really need to spend time understanding, developing. Now, if you say, go and develop a marketing strategy for me, for this business, for this, give all the parameters and things like that, it will come back to it with an answer. But it's going to be a very generic answer. It's not going to be like somebody actually spent time understanding the business. There's some intangibles when it comes to strategy. There's some gut feelings you have that gets uncovered, as you're looking at data, as you're measuring, as you're talking to customers, as you're thinking through things, right? So there's a lot of things that comes out of the human mind that is not yet coming out of the ChatGPT system. Can you get a marketing strategy put together on ChatGPT? Yes. How good is that going to be? Not so great. Same thing with keyword research. I've tried to do keyword research using ChatGPT. Their data is old. They're on record saying that their data goes back to 2021. That's 2 years ago, man. That's peak COVID. Search volume was different back then. So, and I know that they're probably going to try to update that and it's going to be better. But what I mean is you're still going to need keyword research tools. You can't just put in a website and say, give me the 5 keywords that works for this, it could come up with something. And then you could say, break down the search volume, and the numbers that they've come back with hasn't been that great. Actually, I put my own website in there and said, hey, do you know what the visitation stats are and all that kind of stuff? And it came back with wild numbers. I'm like, nah, this isn't true. I don't know where it even came up with that number. It can't build out campaign structures. There's also limitations on that. And when you're designing a campaign A, campaign B, campaign C, ad set 1, ad set 2, ad set 3, what are the best breakdowns based on keywords, based on assets, based on goals, based on objectives? Still can't do that. Human needs to do it. I mean, it can do it, but it's not going to be great. Competitive analysis is another one that I found challenges having it do. It does come back with information. Part of it is because the information is old. And then also analyzing analytics and reports. I've read people that are read about people connecting ChatGPT through the API to Google Sheets and Excel. I know there's an Excel add-on, and using it to analyze data and all that kind of stuff. I haven't gotten really far into it to really know whether it's possible or not, but the simple times that I've tried to do it, it hasn't been great. So I haven't really gone down that road. I'll probably experiment with that more in the coming weeks. Maybe I'll do if it's great, maybe I'll do a whole podcast on it. So anyway, so those are things that it cannot effectively do. Now, with all the ways in which people are going to be using ChatGPT, I was curious to know what Google's position was, especially on the content side. And it's positive, actually. Google is on record. I read this on the Search Engine Journal website. It says Google prioritizes high quality content regardless of whether humans or machines generate it, which is great. Which means my gut is machines not going to create very high quality, relevant content. It's going to create good content. It's going to accelerate the process of content creation. But I think somebody still needs to look it over, review it, make sure it makes sense, and then publish it. If you use ChatGPT for that, I think it's fine. Just go read on Google's position on AI content on Search Engine Journal, and you can read the details of how they're going to view it. Now, the other thing is, and this is something that I'm telling my kids, is don't do your homework on ChatGPT, because there are AI content scanners that can see whether or not this content is AI content or not. And I've run a couple of tests on those. I haven't done tests on all of them, but I did use Zero GPT. It's a tool out of, I think, some student at Stanford made it. It does a pretty good job, man. I took a article that I had written using ChatGPT and I put it into Zero GPT, and it came back and said this is 88% generated by AI. And then I took a blog post from a few years ago that was handwritten, put it in there, and it said it was, a low percentage. I think it said 30% was AI generated. And I think the 30% being AI generated there were just patterns in which we wrote things, or at least I wrote things, or whoever wrote those things in my company, that made it seem like maybe it was copy paste, maybe it was a source, reference or things like that. But it was purely handwritten. I mean human written. So there are tools like that out there that you can use. So if you have hired somebody to write content and you're paying a boatload of money, and you want to verify that they're not just charging you a lot of money and actually using AI tools to write it, use some of these tools, Zero GPT, GPT Radar, Originally.ai. There's a website called wordlift.io/blog that has a whole article listing all the different AI tools that you can use to scan AI tools. So anyway, kind of brings me back to the old Simpsons episode when Homer Simpson becomes a police officer and Lisa Simpson says, but if you're the police, who's going to police the police? Anyway, so that's my little joke today. There is a website called futuretools.io, which has all the AI tools pretty much in one spot. It's a very good way to find tools for generating research, doing video editing, doing voice modulation, finance, podcasting, speech to text. There's lots of AI. The AI boom is real. Lots of people are coming out with ideas on how you can use AI. It's almost reminiscent of the .com era when everybody was out there trying to do a .com for anything. Same gold rush right now for AI. So go to futuretools.io and search for the tool that you need. These are not free tools. Not all of them are free tools. There might be some in the mix. but you might find one that really works for you. I know I've been using AI tools for a bunch of my tasks lately, and it saved me a ton of time, and it's made my work better. So anyway, so those are all of the things that I wanted to talk about today. So today we talked about ChatGPT as the elephant in the room, specifically for marketing. I talked about mastering the machine prompts, gave you some examples there. Also talked about conversing with the machines, how you could talk to it like a human almost, have it do things, as you think and as you understand the inputs that outputs that they're giving to you. Also talked about speeding up your work. Also talked about things that AI can do well and things that it cannot do effectively. And then I shared a little bit about Google's position on AI content, and then also how you can use scanners to determine if the content that you are reading or the content that was given to you was written by AI. And then finally, I shared a website with you that has all of the AI tools in one spot. So anyway, lots of good information here. Would love to hear from you in terms of what you are doing to use AI, how you're using it, how it's been effective for you, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what your experience has been. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear your stories and your experience, and would love to share that with my listening audience. So thank you for joining me today. And with that, I say happy marketing.
If you're a small business owner, a marketing manager at a company, or an entrepreneur, please tune in weekly. You'll gain some insights, tips, and tricks, and be a bit more enlightened when it comes to digital marketing. I promise you, if you implement the strategies, tactics, and tools I discuss in this podcast, your business will definitely grow. Please subscribe to this podcast. You can do so by going to corneryourmarketpodcast.com and subscribe with the listening platform of your choice. That URL again is corneryourmarketpodcast.com. Don't forget to like and share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Also, don't forget to leave a review. Those mean a lot to me and can help others that would benefit from the information I share. Finally, I would love to hear from you. I love getting listener emails. So if you have questions, feedback, or any general comment about the topics I discuss on this podcast, feel free to send me an email. I will be sure to share and discuss your feedback on the air if it will benefit our listening audience. You can write to me at connect@corneryourmarketpodcast.com. Just put listener comment in the subject line. That email again is connect@corneryourmarketpodcast.com. And again, please put listener comment in the subject line. Thanks for listening today. I look forward to being back next week. Until then, be good and do good.